Yellowstone is still rattling after the deadly 1959 earthquake. This is still 60 years later that we're getting the aftershocks of that magnitude 7.3. This is by Eva Fu of Epoch Times. She's referring to the USGS announcement, the statement, the explanation. The staggering number of small earthquakes rocking Yellowstone National Park, where the supervolcano of Yellowstone is located, between 2017 and 2018 brought fears of an impending supervolcano eruption, but a recent study tells us a different story. A study by the Geophysical Research Letters at the University of Utah suggests that the earthquake swarms might actually be aftershocks of the Hebgen Lake earthquake that struck Yellowstone 60 years ago on August 17, 1959. Hebgen Lake, as we know, is just northwest of Yellowstone Lake. Yellowstone Lake sits on top of the magma chamber of the Yellowstone supervolcano. The lake is actually on top of the roof of the magma chamber, which is filled with magma, and as we stand near the lake, it's actually 3 miles down under our feet, the molten rock. Now, the 7.3 magnitude earthquake jolted the whole area of Montana for about 30 seconds. It toppled the dining room fireplace in a historic Old Faithful Inn, and 28 people lost their lives in that earthquake. The shock was very powerful. It was so powerful that the ground in some areas dropped by 20 feet. We saw an image in one of my past videos yesterday that showed that the whole mountainside had dropped it looked like miles on end, 20 feet down. And a new lake named Quake Lake was formed in Montana, and water in the wells of Hawaii, as we remember, about 4,900 miles away, rose up as a result. So the Yellowstone quake had an effect on the island of Hawaii, shown by the water well levels. Now, these kinds of earthquakes in Yellowstone are very common. This is what Keith Cooper said. He's the director of the University of Utah seismograph stations. As we know, Utah University is responsible for monitoring the earthquakes in Yellowstone. Now, according to the news release, these swarms, they said, happen very frequently. This one was a little bit longer and had more events than normal. Gonning, Pang, and Cooper co-wrote a study, and they analyzed the patterns of the 3,345 earthquakes that took place between June 2017 and March 2018 along Maple Creek. That's the northwest area of Yellowstone. They found that the quakes were oriented in the same way as the Hebgen Lake earthquake. Cooper said, there are formulas to predict how many aftershocks you should see. For Hebgen Lake, there looks like a deficit in the number of aftershocks. Now we've had these, it has evened things out back up to the original expectations. The researchers noted that there have been instances of aftershocks of a major earthquake to continue even decades later. For example, the magnitude 6.9 at Bora Peak earthquake that hit central Idaho in 1983 also sent shockwaves through the region 35 years later in 2017. According to Cooper, earthquakes are different from other natural catastrophes such as floods, for example, and hurricanes and wildfires, and that the tremors can keep coming for months or even decades after the major earthquake. Earthquakes don't happen as a single discrete event in time, Cooper said. We don't think it will increase the risk of eruption. Just about 2 weeks ago, concerning Yellowstone's recent activities, we noticed that something else happened at the Norris Geyser Basin. Norris Geyser had been pretty active lately. Well, last year in March, we had the Steamboat Geyser starting erupting almost once a week, and that type of frequency is still occurring up to now. Steamboat Geyser started erupting in the Norris Geyser Basin, and about 2 weeks ago, Ledger Geyser in the park started erupting. It's called Ledger because it's ledge geyser because it's on the ledge of a hillside, and it comes spurting out, and it's a very noisy geyser. It makes a lot of noise because the aperture, the opening of the hole coming out of the ground is very, very tight, and it makes like a type of roaring and whistling noise. So when you're standing near it, you have to scream at each other to hear each other talk. That's how noisy it is. So ledge geyser in the park started erupting, shooting hot water at an angle up to 125 feet in height and at a distance of 220 feet. This is according to the Billings Gazette. The park's website states that the ledge geyser erupted at a regular cycle of every 14 hours in prior years. The geyser became inactive between 1979 and 1993, and then erupted only a fairly regular cycle for every 4 to 6 days during the following 2 years, according to the website again. Yellowstone has 1,300 thermal features and 500 geysers, more than anywhere else on Earth. It actually holds 60% of the world's geysers, and it has over 10,000 thermal areas. In April, scientists discovered a new thermal area, new thermal activities, again in the northwestern part of the park, with the area amounting to the size of 4 football fields. Quote, "This area used to be covered by trees, and now it's an area where there's a bunch of dead trees, bright soil, and it's a hot spot." This is what Greg Vaughn, a United States Geological Service, USGS survey research scientist, claimed. The park said that the thermal activities, such as the heated ground, are simply part of the normal life cycle of thermal areas of the Yellowstone supervolcano in the park. Yellowstone's thermal areas are the surface expression of what's happening deeper in the magmatic system, and there are always changes. They heat up, they cool down, and they can move. And last time Yellowstone volcano erupted full scale was, as we know, 640,000 years ago, created by 30 to 45 mile wide Yellowstone caldera, according to the National Park Service. Now, we had the 640,000 years ago, the super eruption. We also had a smaller eruption 70,000 years ago, and 80 smaller eruptions since that 70,000 year eruption. The 80 smaller eruptions occurred since one of which created the iconic West Thumb Geyser Basin. The over 4.1 million visitors a year spend about a total of $513 million in the neighborhood communities of the park. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.